video. As you can tell by the title of this video, it's about the joys of collecting and upgrading. It's almost like a sequel to a video I did over a year ago. But it's good to do videos like this every now and then as updates and to see where everyone is at when it comes to their collecting and what stage you're in when it comes to your collecting. Now, I recommend you go check out Patrick's new unboxing video. He and Mike, they unbox quite a few goodies, and those videos are always great to watch. But Patrick brought up something that just really stuck with me. You know how like a lot of these YouTube videos nowadays, the thumbnail is always something like this or like that, and it always seems like the negatives. Now we talk about negatives too on this channel. But it's always like collecting is, all about the mishaps and what CGC's doing this time and, oh, how I got burned on this and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I understand that people like those type of videos, but I wanted to do something a little different. A video that, encourages people to continue with collecting, because I understand that sometimes collecting, you hit a wall. Financially or something else. And I think when it comes to upgrading, that wall is torn down and it almost reinvigorates someone's desire to collect, or at least that's the way I see it, and as I'll try to explain in this video. All right, so there's a couple points I want to make. I had to write them down because knowing me, I'll forget them. A few points. So the first one I wanted to mention is that I've been absolutely having a blast upgrading books. What is the joy in upgrading books? Like I was saying a few moments ago, sometimes when you're collecting, I want to collect Bronze Age books, I want to collect Marvel books, I want to collect this one, that one, all that sort of stuff. I want to do collections, I want to get my, Werewolf by Night full set from 1 to whenever the hell that series ended. Whatever. But then after that, it's almost like, what now? Am I not liking this hobby anymore? Am I kind of putting it away? All that stuff. And those things do happen. And, they happen for, sometimes really good reasons. But for me, I haven't... Let me see. Let me see if I could put this to you this way. Over the last 2 years, I haven't been really adding a ton of new books to my collection. Of course, there have been plenty of new books, like with the pre-codes and a couple here and there. But comparing that to when I first started making YouTube videos back in 2014, 2015, and so forth, not that much, a very small percentage. And the reason for that is because, like a lot of people, I might have hit a bit of a wall, whatever it is. Maybe it's a financial wall, maybe it's an interest wall, whatever. But upgrading has torn down that wall for me. And that may have torn down that wall for you at some point, or will tear down that wall for you for this hobby that we all like so much, despite whatever the movies are doing. I know, a little side note, I think Madam Web came out this week, so I don't know when you're watching this video. I don't know how well it's doing. I heard some negative things about it, and it doesn't necessarily look that good, but go check it out if you want. And I know the Fantastic Four was just named, the actors who are playing all the Fantastic Four members, so it seems to be pretty exciting. I'm looking forward to that. But despite all that stuff, despite no matter how successful a movie is or who's cast in a part, we all have our opinions about that, and I certainly have mine. You get to the core reason why I think most of us are here, not all of us, but the most of us are here for collecting. So like I was saying, I've been having a blast these last 2 years. I mean, the truth is I've been upgrading for years, but I've been heavily focusing on it over the last 2 years. And I always credit this book, The Incredible Hulk 181, as the gateway book that really started me into really upgrading some serious books, despite the fact I've been upgrading for years before that. But what that has done for me, and maybe some of you could speak to this too, it's made collecting even more fun than the feeling of getting a new book for the first time. That's great too. Believe me, when I first got my House of Secrets 92 or X-Men #1 for the first time. That was awesome. That was like a milestone for me. Like a Grail book achieved and all that stuff, you know? Those sort of things. Yeah, that was great. But when I upgraded some of these books, some of these Grail books, it was almost as great a feeling as first bringing it into the collection, as I had when I first brought it into the collection. And you could do that for, geez, on and on and on. Unless you were the type that always bought high-grade books from the beginning. I remember when I started making videos, I would get some comments or remarks that I would collect lower-grade books because at the time that's what I could afford, you know, trying to be a little more responsible, unlike some other YouTubers back then that couldn't afford to pay their heating bill or their rent because they went crazy buying the latest variant or whatever. I tried to go at it a little more responsibly. And it's certainly paid off over the years because those lower grade books are now gone, have been sold to replace, and have been replaced, have been upgraded with mid or higher grade books. Like this one right here. This is a low, I would say this is a high mid-grade book. And this is something that's going to be a special peek in my next comic book haul, which will be coming up within the next month, comic book haul number 56. We got some cool books in that one coming up, but this is one of them that's going to be in it. You know, for the longest time, I had like maybe a 5.5, 6.0 copy of this, and then I decided to upgrade to a 7.5. It's a nice grade, a very nice grade. And getting back to the whole purpose of this video, upgrading, this 7.5 could very well just be another step on the ladder of upgrading X-Men 50. I'm happy with the 7.5. I'm not actively looking, or I don't think I'll be looking for anything higher, but if something higher were to pop up, an 8.5, and I know that I think makes financial sense for me to get, and I'll sell this one, make up the difference, and have an even higher grade. That's the joy of it. So you have the same book, right? I already got an X-Men 50, or I already got an X-Men this, or whatever. But it's the joy of having that same book and then upgrading it, and it almost breathes new life into getting that book again. It's just an upgraded version of it. And it's a really good feeling for those that really get into it, and it can last you for a long time. You do it at your own pace. You do it what makes sense. Well, I have to sell this book in order to get this one. That's fine. What I think I could sell this book in order to get this book for. All those things. There's a lot involved in upgrading, but it's truly a very, very satisfying stage of my life when it comes to collecting, because I think that's ultimately where I'm at. You know, there's still many books I'd like to add to my collection that I'd never owned before, but, you know, yeah, there's a few of those that I'd like to get this year, next year, and the years ahead. But I'm really focusing on upgrade, and I'll explain. I'll sum all that up at the end of the video. But just one more example of how joyful it is. Here we have this. I think this copy of Conan. This is like my third copy of Conan #1. I originally bought a 5.0 copy, white pager, New York Comic Con 2018. I was like, oh, I like Conan the Barbarian a lot. I should have him in my collection. So I was like, I don't really need anything that big. So I saw a 5.0, and it looked better than a 5.0. It really did. I was like, wow, this is great. White pages, too. Although it's not very uncommon to get white pages from Bronze Age books. Let's be realistic, right? It's nice. But I think the most common type is off-white to white. But, you know, getting a white pager is always nice. It's not that uncommon in the Bronze Age as it is maybe earlier than that. So I had that, and then I sold it off in 2022 saying, you know, I think I'll get a higher grade. And I did. I bought an 8.0. It was an off-whiter. And it was a beautiful book. But then this one popped up. And as you can see, and I talked about this in the I think Comic Book Haul 55, it's not that much of a bump. It's only half a point bump. But it's also white pages. So here I have a book that's very similar in condition to the last copy I owned. Yet I'm looking at this book and I'm still holding it. I didn't put it away yet. I've had this for several months now, and I still enjoy looking at this book, taking it out, displaying it, whatever. It's that cool. Even with just a slight grade bump. It's not like I went from a 3.0 to an 8.5 where it's like, wow, noticeable grade bump. understandably would be really interested in looking at that book knowing that there are none of those 3.0 defects. Can't really tell the difference between the 8.0 and this one, but it's still a lot of fun. It means a lot to me, and it's certainly helping to keep the collector in me alive. Okay. The second point I want to make, I know I'm going on and on, but this is, those that watch my channel, that's what I do. You know what you're getting yourselves into. The second of 3 points I wanted to make is if you are going to upgrade, and this is something that I touched up on the video last year, and I'm just going to reiterate it to you. Nowadays, even though prices have been coming down, they're still pretty high on some books. They are. And they're probably going to stay high for a while, except for some of those smaller books that people went crazy for, like I think Madam Web. Not that people went crazy for that book. Was it Spider-Man 210 or something like that? Amazing Spider-Man 210? Not that people were spending a lot of money on that, but it's a book like that's not really counted. I'm talking like the major Silver Age books, even though they are going down too. Still, I think, are quite unaffordable for a lot of average day collectors, So what I tell you is, if you're going to upgrade, try to be reasonable with your upgrade, what you choose. If you have a 3.0 copy of whatever, and you're like, oh, I got to get at least a 9, ask yourself, is that reasonable financially? Is that reasonable for you at that point in your life? If it's not reasonable, then either A, ignore that upgrade, or get something that's reasonable. Can you be happy with something that's a little lower? And also, again, the model that I use, the upgrading ladder, you could put that ladder to any book. Let's say you upgraded to a 6.0, but you still would like a 9.0 down the line. Well, I'll tell you one thing. Going from a 3.0 to a 6.0 might be better for you financially. And down the line, going from a 6.0 to a 9.0 or an 8.0, what you want, is better than going from a 3.0 to those 2 grades financially. Especially if you have to sell that lower grade book, that lower grade copy you have. So think of it that way. It's a ladder. That's another great thing about upgrading. It's not like, oh, well, I got this, it's over. No. You could look at it as a ladder. You could be happy with what you buy, like I was just talking about with Conan, the 8.5, or that Polaris, that 50. I'm not looking for an 8.5 or a 9.0. I have a 7.5. But the door is always open. There's always another step on that ladder if I choose to go up higher. It's so much easier for me to get to an 8.5 from that 7.5 than it was from my 5.5 to an 8.5. Just different steps. It's some takes a little bit more stress on your legs than others. You could think of it that way. But the door, or at least the steps, are always available to you. And I think that's what I did with this one. This was the highlight of last year, my X-Men #1. I had a 3.0, and you know the story about that. I had a couple 3.0s. I had a few copies of X-Men #1 over the last, 30 years. But an opportunity came up to get that 5.0. It took a while to think about it, to put it in motion, but it became a realistic thing, and everyone could do that. Everyone could do that. And I think the last point I want to make before I let everybody go is that, overall, I think, and I'll speak for myself, when it comes to my collecting, I'm more proud of my collection than I ever been. And like I said, yeah, I've added some pre-codes into it. I think I've added up the diversity in my collecting. But I think I really enjoy the improvements I made, which, and what that means is the upgrades. I'm very happy that I've been able to lift myself up out of some of the lower grades, and those that collect lower grades, that's fine. No judgment on that. But where I'm at right now, even though I don't have an Amazing Spider-Man 1, I don't have an Avengers #1 or anything like that, who cares? I have a very nice copy of this, I have a very nice copy of that previous years I didn't have. I could actually pull out books and say, wow, this is a nice grade, that's a nice grade, even though I don't have all the newer books that I want. And I think that's another thing that breathes life into the collector that's in the stage of upgrading. I'll eventually get to the Amazing Spider-Man 1. I'll eventually get to this one. I'll eventually get to that one. I'll eventually finish my set, or whatever it is, whatever type of collector you are. First appearance collector, runs collector, both, whatever, doesn't matter. But while I'm here right now at the place I'm at, I'm actually making the fort a little more sturdy. Okay? Where the foundation is becoming stronger instead of just building on top of it. We're fortifying the foundation so that the house can stay up. And that's the way I look at it. Well, it's been about 15 minutes now. Just in the comments, you might want to describe some things that you're working on in your collection. What's keeping you going? Do you like upgrading? Have you thought about upgrading or something else entirely? I'd be interested to know. Thank you all for watching, and take care.